Welcome back to Jersey Matters. We continue our political coverage now with Fred Snowflack, who is a political reporter for Insider NJ, and we welcome back Bill Pascrell III, who is with the Princeton Public Affairs Group. He's a political strategist. Thank you so much. I appreciate you both being here. Let's get, and I'm going to start with you because you've got to be happy. You're a Democratic strategist. It was a big Democratic night. What is the takeaway? What is the big takeaway in New Jersey?
Well, Jersey did well. The blue wave definitely swept through New Jersey. I'm a little disappointed. I'm not exuberant because I think the rest of the country was a disappointment. I was hoping for some more Democrats. I knew it was a challenge, Larry, for the Democrats to take control of the Senate, but we went backwards. We didn't go forwards. We didn't pick up the huge number of governorships, I thought. We have a lot of young folk coming into the Congress, which is a good, positive thing. Jersey is an interesting issue because I think the governor put it all on the line, as did Cory Booker for Senator Menendez. And it looks like when all is said and done, the delegation is going to go to 11-1.
You think MacArthur is going to lose? I should point out that we're recording this the day after the election, so that's still in doubt. He's ahead, though.
He's ahead. I talked to some significant Republicans involved in the campaign who don't think it's going to end up that way because of what's still out there. That could be wrong. I'm not calling it for anyone, but I think in terms of who I've talked to, not on my side of the aisle, on our side of the aisle, they don't think MacArthur can sustain what's still out there and win.
Okay, Fred, what's your takeaway?
No, I think my general takeaway is Donald Trump's unpopularity in New Jersey. I mean, if you look, Bob Menendez was definitely ethically challenged, to say the least. But I think a lot of people probably figured, okay, maybe Bob Menendez is kind of slimy, but I think Donald Trump is worse, and I think you saw the results. And I also looked at the district I covered closely, District 11 in Northwest Jersey, basically, Morris and Passaic County. It may not be a total shock that Mikey Sherrill won, but she really won relatively easily by about 10 percentage points in a district that's been Republican for like 3 decades.
Well, let's stay with that race for a second, and I want to talk about Mikey Sherrill because it seemed to me if you were going to invent a candidate in a lab, she would be it. And the Democrats did a wonderful job, especially in New Jersey, recruiting candidates.
No, you're absolutely right. Some might say she almost had a resume that sounds Republican. She went to the Naval Academy. She flew helicopters in the military, actually in the Navy. Then she was a federal prosecutor. That could sound like a Republican resume, but it really wasn't. Whatever the resume was, she ran as a Democrat, and we saw the results.
Well, there are a lot of Democrats who served in the military. And
was that a strategy going into it?
No, listen, Mikey Sherrill, when she got into this race, had a significant challenge from multiple Democrats, many of whom she was able to work with to get out of the race. She still had a primary. She won easily. She raised a tremendous amount of money. The other thing that's important is candidates matter. Jay Weber, who is somewhat of an institution in Morris County, didn't carry his own county. Morris County is one of the most Republican counties in the state. He didn't carry Passaic County. He lost in one of the most Republican towns, although it's starting to change, in the state, Toms River and Wayne. Wayne is one of the most Republican towns in the state. Mikey won it by 500 votes.
I'll ask you both. If Frelinghuysen would have stayed in, would he have won?
I think it would have been a much more challenging race, but I don't think he would have won. And the reason I say that is Leonard Lance. Rodney voted for the tax cuts, and he voted against the ACA. Rodney's never been in a fight in his life, although he's a great congressman and a good person. I think this was Mikey's race from the beginning because she was able to raise money, and she's also a very good candidate. Yeah, candidates matter.
She was an excellent candidate. Do you agree?
I agree. I think she probably would have beaten Rodney. Would have been an easier candidate to run against because she could have been running against an entrenched incumbent who was quote unquote hiding from the people. Remember, a big deal at the beginning of this race was Rodney Frelinghuysen's refusal to hold a town hall meeting, and that prompted weekly demonstrations outside his office in Morristown, some of which I was there, some of which Mikey took part in. But here is Rodney, honestly, just I know it's a cliche, hiding from the people, but that's essentially what he was doing. And I think she would have won either way. But I think Romney might have even been easier. But I agree. I've seen Romney in action for 20 years, and he never really had a tough fight.
And this would have been a tough fight.
Yeah,
Let me stay with you for a second,
definitely
and let's talk about the Leonard Lance race. He was running kind of against the wind because even though he was an incumbent, it was a district that Hillary Clinton won, and he's always been kind of fighting against the wind in that district because it's a Democratic district, and it finally caught up with him.
It's not really a Democratic district.
Well, in interviewing him, he thinks so at least, over and over and over again.
Yeah, because see, that's why he stressed his opposition to Trump. But I talked to someone who called me up this morning who made the observation, someone in Morris County Republican who thought that if Lance would have not distanced himself from Trump, he might have gotten more Republican votes. I don't know. Sometimes you don't really know what drives people to vote, but that's one argument being circulated.
It's interesting, that point is interesting, and since you dealt with races across the country, I want to bring this up, that the takeaway from some people last night was that Republicans that saddled up to Trump did better than those that ran away from him.
I agree with that. Let's take a look at Congressman MacArthur, and he doubled down on Trump. Trump came in and did a fundraiser for him. He voted against the ACA multiple times, and he voted for the tax package. Leonard didn't do any of that. Leonard lost sizably. Maybe he could have narrowed the gap, possibly, by supporting Trump. But you gotta understand something. Somerset County is one of the most Republican counties in the state, went overwhelmingly for Malinowski. Malinowski's a good candidate too, by the way. Got a lot of incredible credentials in defense and intelligence, was a good resume too, but also raised a tremendous amount of money. So money and a good candidate that can stick to the message and has a credible resume matters.
Let me talk about the MacArthur race now, even though at the time we're taping this, we still don't know who's going to win that race. MacArthur is ahead right now. What about Andy Kim? Was he a good candidate?
Yeah, I think he definitely was a good candidate.
Because he wouldn't do an interview with us. We couldn't find his headquarters. It was kind of an odd race, I thought.
I don't know anything about his headquarters. Do you?
He had a headquarters.
Maybe we just couldn't find it, but we had somebody.
Call me the next time, I'll help you.
We had a reporter calling. We had them asking. We did a piece saying that he wouldn't do an interview with us. So, that's what I was wondering, if it was the candidate in that case that had made it a tight race.
It might have been the candidate, but also might have been, as Bill pointed out, but Tom MacArthur's voting record and being saddling up to Donald Trump, and if that's going to hurt him here in New Jersey, I think it has.
It's funny. Let me preface this, what you're going to say with this. Somebody said to me recently, which was really fascinating, that Tom MacArthur really painted himself into a corner. When he came up with the compromise for the SALT deductions, he had to vote for it.
He owned it.
He had to at that point.
Yeah,
and
you're right. Listen, I want to give credit. I'm not a kind of talking points Democrat for sure, okay? But I covered the debate last Thursday night for MacArthur and Kim. It was one of the most civil debates, substantive debates I've ever seen. I almost fell asleep during the debate, but there was no animation. There was no sort of, street fighting. Neither of them were a street fighter for sure. But I give MacArthur credit, and I give Kim credit for this. MacArthur has core convictions, and he stuck with them. He didn't try to reinvent who he was. Here's who I am. I supported the tax cuts. Fine. I supported repealing the ACA. Fine. Now, he got into a little substantive debate on where he stood on pre-existing conditions. I think that's why that's the closest race, and if it becomes a Democratic pickup, it'll be narrow. Kim also stuck to his message. He didn't get into personal attacks. There wasn't any slander involved or mud. They talked about substance. I wish more races were like that, but not in New Jersey.
Let me head down to the South Jersey Shore for a second, where Van Drew won. The last time I checked, that was closer, I think, than anybody thought it was going to be.
Too, because, a number of months ago, the Republicans basically gave up, at least the national Republicans basically gave up on Seth Grossman. But yeah, I was surprised to see the results too, that it was relative.
Does that show an opening for the Republicans in 2020?
Probably does, because it had been a Republican. Lo Biondo had represented that district, so it probably does show an opening. But I guess from Andrew's point of view, You could win a football game 35-0 or 21-20. As long as you win, it's a win. So.
Yeah, I heard from everybody. He was. I didn't get to meet him, but I heard that he was a formidable candidate, and he was a good candidate. And I was surprised at the results. Had Lobiando stayed in that race, and I know Republicans were begging him to do so, would he have won?
First of all, who knows if Jeff Van Drew would have run, let alone won, if Lobiando stayed in the race.
Right, because they're friends.
So yeah, they're very close, and he had many opportunities with as good, if not better, environment to run. The important thing moving forward, Larry, I think, and Fred, is most of these candidates who won this year have a real challenge ahead of them in the re-elect. As they always say, any moron could get elected once. It takes a special moron to get elected twice. The re-elects are going to be a challenge. And we'll bring up something you've covered many times years ago, a great guy, and you know him, Fred, God rest his soul, John Adler. John Adler won big, voted against the Obamacare ACA, and lost in his first two run-in. So these districts they're not solid Democrats. These Democratic elect congresspersons are going to have a real challenge ahead because they're going to be struggling with, do I support the caucus? Do I go with the president? If I go with the president, does that cost me in a primary? And 2020 is going to be a huge primary, at least on our side of the aisle.
It's amazing we're starting with 2020
already.
already.
Today starts.
I know, I get it. Well, I'll give you the last word.
Well, Trump will still be on the ballot, presumably, in 2020. So I think maybe you'll have the same anti-Trump dynamic. So I don't think the Democrats who won are going to be that endangered. Of course, there's a lot of factors. Depends on who the Republican candidates are, too. But I don't think they'll be that endangered.
From your lips to God's ears.
I'll give you one last question. Do you think Bob Hugin's going to have a hard time explaining to his wife why he spent over $30 million of their money on this election?
I know I'd
Probably
have.
not.
Drop in a bucket, Fred?
From what I've seen with Mr. Hugin, at every appearance he always mentioned that he talked it over with his wife before getting into the race. So.
I wonder if she knew how much that was going to cost. I can't imagine spending that much money and losing.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it bought him either.
Yeah, you think he's done politically?
I don't know about done politically. He said something interesting last night. I'm a Marine, and the fight still continues. I'm not sure. Is he running for governor? I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't even really get into the Menendez race, which is the biggest of the races, but I think we're out of time, so I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Bill Pascrell, the third political
Nice
strategist.
Fred, pleasure.
Fred Snowflack from Insider New Jersey. Jersey Matters continues right after this. Still to come on Jersey Matters, we'll introduce you to a new political star in New Jersey. Our interview with Mikey Sherrill when Jersey Matters continues.